Fights now. I am Dustin Baker. The draft is so close. You can taste it. We're coming off a little bit of steam. We think we got some hints, some confirmation of sorts that Justin Jefferson's deal is either done or is this close. We got that for some credible sourcing today. We hope to get absolute confirmation before too long. Couple that with the theory that we think a new quarterback is on the way on Thursday night. It's an exciting week for Vikings football. So we're going to talk to Ameer from Vikings Twitter, who's a Timberwolves fan foremost, also a Vikings fan. He's been telling me he had some draft takes that he wants to get off his chest, and we want to hear them. So with that said, Ameer, welcome to the show. You've been on the Believe show before with Bryant McKinney, but this is your first time on Vice now. First of all, how are you?
I'm doing great. Hopefully, my eyebrows aren't too close to the camera like on the other show. It's pretty. Yeah, Miss B-Mac he's a big man, so it's pretty intimidating for that first time. So hopefully on this show we'll have a better second opportunity.
Oh no, you were fine. You were fine last time, and the eyebrows look great. So let's start with this draft stuff. You've been saying to me on Twitter that you got some stuff you want to talk about. So tell me, what is it about this Vikings draft that's got you? I think it's excitement. Tell me what it is.
So I'm obviously no expert. I mean, none of us truly are. Everyone, even the experts that release mocks, they have their own opinions. So we no one truly knows. But based on what we've heard in the last few days from the pre-draft press conferences from the GMs of the Patriots and the Cardinals and the Chargers, I think there is a slight chance that the Vikings might get a quarterback without needing to trade up. I
Really?
think
Like a
I've
slide?
I've laid it out like this. So I think there's a scenario where Chicago takes Caleb at 1, Washington takes Daniels at 2, the Patriots stay at 3, and they take one of May or McCarthy,
Mm-hmm.
with leaving one of them on the board. The
Okay.
Cardinals and Chargers don't trade out. Cardinals take Marv. Chargers would take one of Joe Alt, Minnesota native, or Malik Neighbors. Then the Giants, I'm not really, I don't legitimately believe after giving Daniel Jones 80 million guaranteed that the Giants are actually going to take a quarterback. I think that's the whole time has been a smokescreen, and I think the Giants will take whoever the Chargers do not take between Neighbors and Alt.
Okay.
And I think the Titans, they seem to need an offensive lineman, so they'll most likely take the second offensive lineman off the board, whether that's Fashanu out of Penn State, whether that's J.C. Latham out of Alabama. So then the Falcons, after taking our old Kirky boy, they could use some help on defense. So probably the first defensive player off the board goes there, most likely Dallas Turner out of Alabama. Then Chicago needs a receiver or offensive lineman. So you never know. Maybe do they go Roba Dunze, or do they go Xavier Worthy at receiver? Do they go whichever between Latham and Fashanu, or that the Titans don't take,
Mm-hmm.
or do they go a different route on offense? Who knows? Then the Jets seem to be in love with Blake Bowers. So
Rock.
that leaves the Vikings at 11 without needing to trade up, holding on to 23, holding on to a 25 first, and one of Drake May or JJ McCarthy falling right into their laps without
Wow.
having to trade up.
Well, I think that is the holy grail scenario.
Yeah, that would be pretty nice. Amir, do you really think do you think Denver wouldn't be tempted to kind of jump up in there, like say around 8 or 9, and to trade up and snipe one of those quarterbacks?
It's a possibility, but I think the Vikings could do that as well. But then in that scenario, the Vikings could move up a couple of picks and still maintain their firsts. You could I haven't looked at the full draft charts.
Mm-hmm.
Would they have to give up 23 to move up from say 11 to 8, for example? That who knows? But I just the whole ever since the trade with Houston 5 weeks back, everyone seems to think move up to 3 or 4 busts, and I just don't think that's necessarily the case. I think I'm starting to think if those GMs, if those franchises are legit in staying put, it just leaves me to think that someone's going to be available later than we think.
I got to ask you while we're on this topic, because we're going to jump into some more off-season decision making. If it were up to you, who would you rather slide? Who do you want the Vikings' next quarterback to be in that scenario, May or McCarthy?
I prefer May just because of the arms, just because of the arm strength and the it factor. I just feel I don't know. I think I'm not an expert. I'm not gonna say I hate any of the quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
I think McCarthy could be good. I just think the sample size is much greater in over the past 2 years with May than McCarthy. And some of that could be playing in a Jim Harbaugh offense where they love to run the ball. I mean, I guess Kevin O'Connell seems to know exactly what he's doing. He's played quarterback. He's actually ran combine training for quarterbacks. Actually, which was no surprise to me why the Vikings are doing what they're doing pre-draft. That's O'Connell. I believe this is before he went to Washington and the Rams.
Mm-hmm.
That he was in charge of helping to train quarterbacks pre-draft. So that sort of frames his beliefs on pro days versus private workouts. I but I digress. I just think we don't know we don't know for sure yet who's really going to be good and who isn't. I will admit though I'm higher on May, but I would not be opposed to McCarthy.
That's kind of I think that is all three of us are exactly right there. I'm
Yeah.
actually high on McCarthy as well, but Drake May has been my guy, even like more, believe it or not, more so than Caleb, just
Yeah.
because in the Vikings offense, I think Drake May is like scripted in heaven for Kevin O'Connell. Brevan,
Yeah.
what else you got for Ameer?
Yeah, and if anybody that was kind of, I guess, on the fence about the McCarthy and May debate, definitely go back and watch yesterday with Thor, because he damn near convinced me in McCarthy over May. Like, I mean, I liked McCarthy before, but he was cooking. I did not expect him to cook like that. I know he knows his stuff, but like
Mm-hmm.
he was flaming hot. So Amir, with this theory, which is a really interesting theory, it's not really one that we've explored that much, especially since the trade. Would you then be mad if the Vikings do end up trading up all this stock to go get one of those quarterbacks when you think one of them could potentially fall? Like, well, on draft night, we would go like, oh, how could they do this if they trade up to get one?
Oh, absolutely not. No,
Yeah.
no. I mean, go get your guys. I mean
Yep.
that's a philosophy that I'm in support of. Go get your guys. But I just feel like I my opinion is more based off of the other team's scenario. If I were the Vikings, I would want to move up. Like I want to get my guy. But like I said, it's just based on what we're hearing the last few days from Elliot Wolf in New England and Austin Fort in Arizona, and even the Chargers GM to an extent. It just seems like they're in love with staying at those picks. So if you're unable to convince them, then I don't think it's all doom and gloom, because then I just think one of those guys is going to be there.
Yeah, so I adore your theory. The one thing I will be apprehensive about is for that hour or whatever it is between, I guess, pick 3, 4, and 11. Oh my God, we are going to be on eggshells in terms of like if your theory starts to come true, and we're waiting like. Every pick is going to be, as a Vikings fan, like, oh God, here comes the trade that somebody else
Torture.
is going to get. Yeah. Or, oh my God, the Giants are actually going to do it and get McCarthy. So for context, although this is what you'd have to go through to get to your theory's fruition, it will be murder as Vikings fans, because we will be paranoid as F, thinking somebody's going to mess it up. So the only problem with your theory is the one alluded to by Brev, is that you have to either have signals or intel that says you don't have to box anybody out. The Broncos are just content selecting Bo Nix or somebody. The Raiders really like Gardner Minshew. And then you're basically crossing your fingers, because I'm with you on the Giants. I haven't understood how a regime could pay Daniel Jones and then turn around and sell their owners on, by the way, we need to get another quarterback. Their wide receiver. So I think it is a smokescreen. I think they want neighbors. Their wide receiver situation is so messy that Darius Slayton didn't show up to camp. And that's hilarious because who is he to hold out? It'd be like me stomping around this show pretending I'm Adam Schefter. I'm not. And so for Slayton to be a holdout, it's like, ooh boy, that's a big one. What are we going to do without you?
No, Darius, please.
Yeah, I mean, any fantasy football manager can tell you that, this guy is a decent ball player, but he's like a WR3 in terms of production. Ameer, this offseason, we got we're like 15 weeks into this offseason. We had 16 players go elsewhere to sign with other teams, 14 new dudes, 7 guys internally re-signed, and then about 5 or 6 like Dalton Reisner and Chris Reed, Anthony Barr haven't been signed elsewhere. What's a move that you have enjoyed throughout this offseason that made you go, hell yeah, baby?
I love the 2 moves, the 2 former Houston Texans that we brought in, Jonathan Grenard and Blake Cashman. I felt heading into the offseason, we needed to address the pass rush. Then on top of that, not only did we need an edge rusher because the writing was on the wall that Daniil was going to leave, but in addition, so Grenard being 2 years younger than Daniil,
Mm-hmm.
I mean he hasn't had as much time as a starter, so that does concern me. But you just have to love his production. But the thing I was really looking forward to heading into the offseason was just how Brian Flores used Metellus and used other Ivan Pace. I was thinking with the need at edge rusher, it would be really behoove us to grab an edge rushing linebacker. And so initially I was hoping for Frankie Lulu
Mm-hmm.
just because I thought for some reason he would be
Me too.
cheaper than Cashman. But as a full disclosure, as a University of Minnesota alum, have multiple degrees from the University of Minnesota, huge, and watching him with the Texans the last 2 seasons, I'm a huge fan of what Cashman can bring.
Mm-hmm.
I really like Van Ginkel as well. Been banging the drum for Van Ginkel the last 2 off seasons. So I really like those 3 moves in particular.
Yeah, the defense has been beefed up. One of the notable things that I got wrong this offseason, I thought Daniil Hunter would be back. I believed when he said that he wanted to be a Viking for life. I thought if they didn't want him, they would have traded him back in October when things were going sour. But I got that one wrong. But I was not obsessed when they almost got 2 for the price of 1 with Van Ginkel and Greenard. And so I will miss Daniil Hunter, damn near one of next to Harrison Smith, like, my favorite Viking for the last decade. But I am excited about the possible production as well, and the youth and the affordability. It was cool how the Vikings were able to sign a bunch of dudes the moment that Kirk signed with the Falcons. That's what happens when you get to embark on this rookie quarterback era. Brev, what else you got for Ameer? We got time for probably about 2 more.
Yeah, I mean, he gave us his favorite move of the offseason. What was your least favorite move of the offseason? What made you go, hell no, baby?
Well, it wasn't necessarily a move that we brought in. It was just the lack of aggressiveness in getting a defensive tackle.
Amen.
I mean, Jerry Tillery, like, he hasn't really been playing well in with the Raiders. And it's like, I understand they wanted Christian Wilkins, but you couldn't beat out what the Raiders gave him. There's a couple other guys that fell off the board I would have loved, like Tier Tart or Sheldon Rankins. We just couldn't get them. So I guess if my theory does come to fruition, I would love to see a defensive tackle in particular go at 23. I don't think the other Byron Murphy will be available at 23, but I really love Newton from Illinois. I really love the kid Robinson as well. But yeah, I just feel like the lack of moves at the defensive tackle position is what I like the least about this offseason.
Yeah, I think for folks that are obsessed with this team, like all 3 of us, I think that is probably one of the top grievances. And the reason that is because I swear that there's like the fans are like the only one that realizes that you can do better at that position. It's like ever since, my goodness, like it's like 10 years worth of bodies at the 3-tech spot. And we look around every Sunday and you're watching somebody else employ a defensive tackle at that spot that can actually rush the passer. And here we are with Shamar Steven or Jonathan Bullard or Armin Watts. And it's like, man, at some point, somebody's going to be like, we can go get one of those guys. So we shall see in terms of the draft. If Brevan's theory is correct, they trade up, they're not going to have too much oomph to go get a defensive tackle unless they want to take a swing at T'Vondre Sweat, who has a little scandal around his name. Otherwise, it's kind of lottery tickets when you get down to pick 108. Well, speaking of that, let me ask you this, Ameer. It sounds like you know your stuff quite well about these Vikings. So do you have a draft crush, whether that is, outside of the guys we've talked about, maybe in round 4, if they trade back into Friday in round 2 or 3? Is there a guy outside of Mayor McCarthy anywhere in this draft that you're like, ooh, I'd love to see that guy in purple?
There are plenty. I mentioned a couple. Johnny Newton from Illinois. He's a really big dude. I know the Vikings are in love with Murphy, and I love him too. But I feel like Newton was not as healthy in 2023. But the first half of 2023 and 2022, he was a menace, absolute menace. Then for the middle rounds, I'm not quite sure if we want to address wide receiver 3 in the draft or not. There's a couple guys I love. Malik Washington out of Virginia Tech. He can move. He's really good. I think he could help a lot. I really like Javon Baker out of Central Florida as well. So there's a lot of depending on the spot in the draft. There's just a ton of guys that I really like.
Yeah, the draft, WR3, if the Vikings covet one of those, which they probably should, my God, there's so many options, especially with their own organic draft capital. This draft has this weird, like, guaranteed to be good 2 and possibly 3 guys. Then there's kind of like some, oh, hey, this guy could turn out to be WR1. And then there's like this big, like, arid, like, place. And then it's like WR3 bonanza of guys that can chip off 600 yards and 8 touchdowns in a season. So we're hoping the Vikings can get one of those. All right, the last thing I have to ask you, because I know that you're an absolute devout Timberwolves fan, sometimes a panicky one, my friend. I want to know, how are you feeling after today's dub over those Suns, that pathetic super team that's not pathetic super team, but it's a really big name super team that doesn't play defense. I want to know, are you emboldened to say, hey, these Wolves are going to get out of this round? Or what are you thinking on the Timberwolves? Because I'm sure there's a lot of crossover in terms of fandom in our audience.
I'm ecstatic. I'm quite honestly stunned and shocked about how easy the win was. I mean, when you look at all the potential matchups, not even just on Sunday, the last couple days of the season, regular season, but just the last 3 months of the season, monitoring all the potential teams in the Western Conference that the Wolves could have faced, Phoenix was the one that scared me the most.
Mm-hmm.
So that's sort of why I was heading into this affair this afternoon. I was a bit pessimistic or a bit anxious, which was just because paired with the regular season performances against them, also just with what they pose versus what other matchups would have posed, it sort of just got me nervous a little bit. But after today, I mean, I felt going into this game that there were 3 keys to winning this series, and all 3 of them played out brilliantly today. Number 1 was I felt the guys on the bench, Nikhil Alexander Walker and Naz Reid, they had to perform well, and they both did. They both did that. I also felt Carl Anthony Towns. He was getting the defensive matchup of Grayson Allen guarding him. I felt obviously on defense in the last in the last matchup last Saturday, last Sunday, excuse me. Allen lit him up offensively, and Carl was still rusty offensively from the injury.
Mm-hmm.
So Carl playing really well offensively in the paint, that was really helpful. And then just locking down defensively in general. that it has me really optimistic. But as I'm sure we all know, the three of us and your audience all know, as Vikings fans, as Wolf fans, just as Minnesota, like we just be optimistic. So I'm not gonna make any bold predictions or bold declarations after game one, but I'm very ecstatic and pleased to say the least.
Here's where I'm at, and Brev, I'm going to get your NBA takes here in just a second before we log off. But I've got to give my Wolves speech. So for full disclosure, I've been a LeBron guy since spring of 2003. So the Cavs, the Heat, and the Lakers have always been my team foremost. But I always keep a close eye on the Timberwolves, so they'd be my second team. And usually I started looking around the NBA about 2017, thinking, hey, LeBron, eventually he's not going to be good. And that really hasn't happened. But I thought, I'm going to have to find a new guy or a new team before too long. And it's going to be the Timberwolves. So I've watched all of Timberwolves basketball, especially in the postseason. And I can tell you, watching today, you guys might balk at this. That team, I kid you not, is the exact same team, except for Anthony Edwards turning into a top 3 superstar. Like everything that they did, like, they play good ball, the little engine that could. But when you have Anthony Edwards, who is emerging somewhat rapidly as the next big thing, he is what's going to put them over the top. So it all comes down to whether it's this postseason that he consistently morphs into a killer, or if he's going to have some of those growing pains where like, oh, he only had 12 points this game and went to sleep. That happens even for the best. LeBron could tell you all about it in 2010. But the thing that's so different is, yes, the Timberwolves, especially when they got good in the last 5 years, they've always been scrappy and they've always had that, like, they're going to be in it. But now that Anthony Edwards, when he had that little stretch of 10, 15 minutes where we were just like, Jesus, like that is the difference. And that is how the Timberwolves can get to where they want to go. Brev, what do you got NBA wise before we say goodbye for this Saturday night?
I'm not much of a basketball guy.
Okay.
I wore this shirt just to, like I said, pre-show, just to piss Dustin off with liking the Lakers. I'm not a Nuggets fan. I just thought it was funny that Nikola Jokic was in a swimsuit as a child, which is kind of creepy now that I say it out loud. But no, I'm a Wolves fan. I'm like an all Minnesota sports fan, so I'm kind of used to the Wolves being pathetic up until the last couple of years. So the Vikings not making the playoffs and the Wild not making the playoffs this year, the Wolves being the team that are showing competence right now is actually really kind of weird, but it's nice. Like Anthony Edwards is a bona fide superstar. I think we kind of all expected it from him. I've kind of been, I temper my expectations with all Minnesota sports, especially the Timberwolves. And I was kind of down with the Rudy Gobert trade when that happened, because I was like, wow. I know Rudy Gobert is like one of the, if not the best defensive player in the NBA, but it's working out. And they've got 3 amazing centers from what I can tell. Like I said, I'm a cat. I can name Al-Farouq Aminu back in the early 2010s. I can barely name like role players in the NBA now.
Okay.
But hockey's more my sport. But I do want to make a slight announcement, because we did just now actually live hit 2,000 subscribers.
Oh, no way. Really?
Now. Yeah. So congrats, Ameer. You're on the episode. We hit 2,000. I checked it before the episode. We were at 1999. I was like, nice, one more.
Oh, really? We're on the Prince's number? Sweet.
Exactly. Yep. So we're there. So thank you to everybody for the support. And I just wanted to announce that live on stream.
Yeah, we've been going for 2 years and a month on this channel, and alas, we hit 2,000. So yeah, on the Timberwolves, they're going to win this series, and that's because they play defense, and the Suns, they have to really try to play a good game or 2 of defense. But then we shall see, because they're going to get the mighty beast and the defending champs thereafter. All right, Ameer, you got any closing arguments? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, before I let go, I know you guys will probably mention it in the next episode or what have you. So I heard rumors, just because he's sitting at courtside today, are those Jefferson rumors, are they simply just from him sitting courtside with that fancy jacket on?
No, when I got my intel, I've been doing this Vikings writing thing for about 5 years. My intel came last night. Actually, Brev gave me a tip, and then I was like, what does that mean? And so I went through my usual sources, and it sounds like it is a particular player that says that the deal is done or is imminent. And then I what I always do when I'm sourcing a rumor like that is I check them. Like I don't even say like, hey, have you heard anything about this? I just say with anything going on. And then if 2 or 3 of them say the same thing, because I know they're not affiliated, I'm like, all right, there's something to this. And that's what happened today with Jefferson. I think it was just a big grand coincidence that when I tweeted that, or it started to heat up, that I think there was some like Vikings Twitter accounts that often get it right that hinted that. So yeah, it wasn't just that I saw Jefferson with a sweet outfit at the Timberwolves game and thought, hey, F&A, let's just say he's going to be back. No, it was sourced information. It's the same information that has been telling me for about 3 weeks that Drake May is the guy that they want, and they're going to try to move heaven and earth to get him. So that's what I know right now, is that indeed, I just really don't pound it home on the show because it sounds like, well, yeah, of course they want Drake May. But the Jefferson thing, I would say that it's a reasonable a bit of confirmation that Jefferson was also there today. I know he has a camp or something this week, but if he was that damn disgruntled, I don't know if he would, be up there chumming it up with Adrian Peterson and all that.
It's tricky too, because when you get these tips and stuff from sources, you as the person receiving it can also only say but so much. So there's a lot of speculation and everything, and you can't really just be like, this is happening. You kind of have to be careful with it.
Ameer, since you and I have been friends for about 4 or 5 years, you might remember that I always get the schedule early, about a day or two early, like the NFL, the Vikings schedule. It's the same source that gives me that.
And I didn't want to. I didn't want you guys to give away any sources. I just thought it was a grand, like you said, it was a grand coincidence that when I saw that on my feed was right at the same time that they showed him courtside at the game. Like, that could that I actually wondered about that before I even saw your post. I'm like, if he's up in Minnesota, maybe something has taken place.
Yeah, I think it's a good breadcrumb, because not that he wouldn't go to an NBA playoff game, if he was staging a big old holdout or something like that, but I think it would be more likely that he would be off in Louisiana or something if
or
he
Miami.
knew,
I know last year.
if he knew shit was going poorly and he was going to be traded to the Bengals or something like that. Yeah, maybe he wouldn't be there. But all right, we've gone into conspiracy Vikes now. I'm going to rein us back in. Ameer, thank you for joining us. You hit my line sometime, I don't know, later this spring, early this summer, and we can start to hash out what this roster will look like. And then, Brev, you and I talk tomorrow with KSG from Vikings Twitter, and I think Jake _68 or something.
Yep.
All right, Ameer, thanks for joining us, sir.
Thank you all so much.
Yeah, we'll talk to you next time. Yeah, you too. Later.